All right, so we are here in the ninth part of this series, and we're kind of just really getting rolling with adding some data into Strapi and learning a bunch of things that how to do that with things that are going to be repeated and used in multiple areas throughout your application, or throughout your site, I guess, because we're not to the application part yet. But what we're looking at here is creating a page links collection and an authentication links collection. And I'm here in the post because I want the copy from here. But also what I have to do is now go through the code and then get copy from elsewhere. One of the reasons for that is if I go to the marketing site, one of the things that I did originally is I was kind of creating this, oopsie. Oh, okay. So I went to start this, but I don't have the CMS running. So because locally the data comes from the CMS, um, it needs to be running in order to have the data there. Cool. So I got that running. Now if we refresh, we have our data here coming from Strapi. So this was the original component, and it was just kind of a placeholder thing. I originally thought about kind of like doing the whole page and making it look real, but I wanted to get right into like the development process of creating the new site. So we're here, but what I'm using is a template, and I did the old trick of renaming it backup and throwing it in another area. So I'm using this template, and that'll save me a lot of time. I don't have to do all the styles, so I can just customize a couple of things here and there. But it also means that I don't have like a Figma to work with. So in the post, I had like this, and a lot of times if you're creating something like this, you might have the Figma, and then you would open that up and copy and paste or copy the content out of there. In my case, I have all of this stuff here, so I can get this like stuff, but I don't want to like go through the web to do it because then I have to like copy the link style and like strip stuff out. So I know that in my code I have this header here. And so I'm just going to copy all these out. And I'm going to stop talking in the video for 1 second because there's not much sense in like watching me copy and paste a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to fast forward through that. But one interesting thing is, and this is something I'm going to skip for now, is I noticed this. The way that they're handling this is like it's get started today, and part of that is hidden based on like the size of the browser. So it doesn't come in until the large breakpoint shows this today. I'm going to, for the time being, skip that functionality. That's something I would have to think about, and I'll kind of like maybe put it into like an iteration of the things in the future. So like, oh, we have a request that we want to make this text a little bit longer, or we want to make sure that this button looks this way at a particular breakpoint. How do we handle that in Strapi? Because there is kind of an unusual thing. We have to say, like, how do we handle text for breakpoints? Not a big deal, but just something unusual. So yeah, let's copy and paste. All right, and with having all of that done, I'm going to jump into the CMS that we already have running. But, oh, actually, I don't need to go into the code. I'm not sure why I was going there. But if we go to the admin, should have just clicked the link. We go to the admin, we kind of have our setup here. We go into the content builder. We have our coming soon that was already created in the past. And then now what we have to do is create new collection and eventually a new single. I'm going to start with the collection because that makes the most sense. That's why I grabbed like the page links text. And to me, this is a collection of page links, and that's how I think about it. However, for Strapi, it's not how that would get implemented. I think of a collection of page links. Strapi says that this is a page link collection. Display name can actually be separated. That's more friendly for the UI, I think. But you have to do an individual or a singular version because the API is going to have a request for the singular version and a plural version. There's nothing in the advanced settings that I want to use. There would be if you were doing internationalization. For this demo, I won't be doing that. So I'm going to create that page link collection. That is going to have text and The name of that to me would just be text. If you are creating a link, I think that text should be required. And then if you're creating, then I'm going to create another one or name that hash. Originally, I would have been doing this differently, and I was going to make a component, would have been reused. I would have done this as URL or path or something like that, or slug probably would be the best. But here hash works because these are page links. They are anchor links on the page, so I'm just kind of saying that you would have to put in the hash. Technically speaking, I could write a regex that makes it required for the hash to be there. I'm not going to do that for now. If it would become a problem, it's something that is an option, and if you have requirements for links, you can do that. I'm going to save this. Now I have a page link collection, and a lot of the things, as this is like restarting, a lot of the reasons why I'm doing this in video is I want to show this stuff and talk about how it works within Strapi, but it takes so many, there's like small little like things that I have to do screenshot after screenshot, where I think talking through a video like kind of makes it a little bit more clear. So for this content manager, I'm going to go here, I'm going to create a new entry. We have features. It looks like in my copying and pasting, I didn't get my hash, so that's funny. And then I did it really quick, but when you save something as a content item, the first time you also need to publish it. And then of course, like, you can unpublish things if you need to, but I'll go a little bit slower for that this time. So if I was to do this, we have testimonials, and I save this. This is still a draft version. This is for like things that, anything that you'd want to be able to do a preview or work with it, you can see it before it is published. But for my case, I want all of these things in the content immediately, so I'm going to publish each one. Last one is pricing. Ooh, that was quick. All right, so we have that, and we're going to publish this. Now, authentication links is going to work a little differently. They are technically links, but I don't think that any non-technical person should be able to change where the link is going to or the styles. They're very specific. There's some affordances to the button that kind of work in a couple other ways throughout the application, and I can't imagine a reason why you'd want to change the login page. I could picture A/B tests or something like that, but we're not building for A/B tests like in that kind of way right now. We're kind of more building like that. If someone got the idea that they wanted to change from sign in to login and see how that works, we could do that. But I haven't built this in like this full like A/B test type of way. So instead of making a collection of those things, to me, this is going to be a single type. So I'm going to go back to the content builder, and I'm going to create a new single type, and I'm going to grab that authentication links. And nothing again in advanced settings. And then in here, this is going to be a little bit different because what I'm kind of creating is one little object of data that can get used in like various locations. And so right now the button is like, or the links are sign in and get started today. But I want to name them something that would make sense if we change that to login or create your account. So to me, I see them as a new customer link, and then that would call link text. So because you can only change the link text, so new customer link text. I'm not going to make it required, but I am going to put the default value of get started today. So it's already going to be there. I'm more just creating this as the ability for someone to change it if there was a need to, without having to touch code for that to happen. A lot of these things would be decisions that would be made like in your organization about what should and shouldn't be editable. I'm kind of making it for the entire organization on this one. So this one will be the existing customer link text, and then that will be the sign in. Cool. So now we have all this data. As this saves out, we now can access this data via the API almost. So technically speaking, there's an API, and I can go hit that, and I would be able to see like the coming soon stuff that we've already set up before. You can see I have done this stuff already a couple of times. But we can see, like, if you go to the API of your thing, you can then see the return of the API. So if we went right now and we went to page link, technically speaking, that should be available, but it won't be right now. And the reason why is everything that you create in Strapi, you then have to give permissions to be for it to be accessible. It's not by default. So we're going to go to the public area of permissions, and then we're going to go to page link, and we want it to be able to find one, but we also want it to be able to find them all. And so you can kind of see your routes here for those. Cool. I'm going to save this. And then we also want to do the same thing for authentication link. And we're going to save that as well. And then now if we go back here, nothing works. The reason that didn't work is like page link, I would have to also put what number I wanted to grab by ID. But if I grab all of the page links, we can see we get a data array with a handful of things and a little bit more data than we want. But we'll get to that like when I go grab the data in a moment. But you can see there is a lot of data here when really most of the time what we're going to be after is this. We will also need an ID because this is a next application. We're going to be probably doing a loop. We'll need a key. The most unique identifier would be the ID. Technically speaking, we could just use the text from them, but I probably will just pass the ID for safety's sake. So we have all of that. I think I saved everything. So we should be good right here. So now we have data. Now what we're going to do is now step off into the code and query this data. All right, so off to the CMS, to the marketing site again we go. I probably had that just open in a tab, but here we are here. And then if we go to the original page, we are kind of like replacing this page, like the basic landing page right now. I'm not going to build this in a way of like, oh, let's build another page. We'll just say that like this would be a long-running PR that wouldn't get merged until the landing page was done. And so we're going to kind of be building in that way. We wouldn't do a full release until we're ready to go. So what I can do here now is I already have this thing that's going to look at the data object from a path in the CMS at the moment. So technically speaking, I could just change this to page links, and I'm going to get the data here, but that's going to cause a problem for the component. So I'm going to kill that right there, and then this is going to get parsed out into like this coming soon data, which is we'll change it, but for the moment what I can just kind of show is that if I grab this, switch the data out, it's going to hit that API and we'll have our data, and then we can build up from there, but at least we know right away we're getting what we're expecting. And here, that is not at all what's happening. So data, oh. I think it's, no? Yeah, because data is an array instead of, yeah, okay. So it was looking, I was like destructuring to data attributes, but that's within each item right here. So instead of this, I'm going to take data and now I'm just going to pass data down through here. So I'm just getting data right here, which should just be this array of objects that we're getting in there. If I go back in here, cool, we get an array of objects. We get it twice, which is a little concerning to me. It's something I'll have to look at later. But we get our array, but as I mentioned, like we also are getting a bunch of more information. And the issue with this, or the reason why this is happening, is I have this get Strapi data. item right here, and that really just goes to the endpoint and grabs the data and brings it in. It was a very simple example. It worked for that one thing, but I think what we would always want is some way to parse all of this code and then strip it down into what exact data we want to put into the front end. There are ways to maybe do this on a wider scale. If you look around and like grabbing Strapi data, best practices, that kind of thing, you can find some ways that you can kind of do this at a large scale. But I think for learning purposes, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create get methods or get functions for like each particular endpoint that I'm going to get for. So this is going to be a get page links. It's going to do very, very similar functionality, except that instead of getting all the data and passing a path, we're going to have the path in here. That's going to be page links. So this is going to go out there and grab that same information right now. And then so now here we could switch this out. I think that's just a named thing now. So get Strapi data. All those would be get page links. And then I don't need to pass any argument into there. Cool. So I got this. Broke something, which is cool, for sure. And I think it's because I'm destructuring here. So I think it would be data instead. And that is not it. It's because it's not a function, so maybe I didn't have it set up the way I thought. Cool. So now I'm back to that mess, and B, that's because I did destructure this. Got a little bit ahead of myself there. Cool. So I'm back to at least requesting that data in there. Now this is where we get a little fun. I don't know how to do this. I know what I want to do. I can go find code examples of it in code bases that I've worked in or in like the internet or whatever. And so I know what I want to achieve. I just don't know the exact syntax for what I want to do. I know essentially I want to map over this and then like rename what I get back from the return into what I want. But the cool thing is I know how to tell ChatGPT for that. And then just like full disclosure, I've done this video like 18 times already. So because I've been learning, but I've already done this, and so I know that I kind of asked for a very particular thing. So for here, what I asked for was, I'm going to give you a JSON object. I want you to write a JS function to trim it to the following format. It's going to be an array with each object having ID, hash, and text. And it's like, sure, boom, here you go. Here's what it gives us, which makes sense to me. Okay, cool. So here we are. Little cut there, but here we are basically where we were. So I was saying like, oh, everything is wonderful with this, and just so you know, it is not wonderful. But I'm going to show why. So I thought it'd be kind of important to show like what I was kind of like struggling through off screen. Maybe I'll do some videos in the future where I actually struggle through this stuff, but this one's long, and I don't think me fighting this kind of thing made sense. So I asked for it to do this. It is doing exactly what I asked. So it's taking JSON, trimming it down, mapping over it, and returning a pure array from what I asked. Pure array being the key part of that. So here, if we go to add this, and we take this trim JSON, we send it to the front end. Here we get page links, and we return that to props as page links. We're going to go over here, and we should see. Oh, I'm not passing it down into anything. So here, so we go page links, and then console. Oopsie. Cool. And here we have our array. hash ID and features. And everything's fine. Cool. Anyway, cool. I'll just take it. So what I thought I had done is gone too far with my trimming, but what I had actually done is I wasn't passing uh, props down through as an object. So I'm realizing that now. So I was about to say that what I had done is I had gone through here and trimmed it down to an array, but that I really needed it to come down as a JSON object because props to be serialized have to be an object to get passed through to the page in a next application. And so I had gone in and asked, like, I was going to show this, but I had just gone in and asked for, can you refactor this to end up as a JSON object? But it wasn't that at all. It was that I had removed the brackets from the props. So that's what it was. I get that now, and I actually that this is real time me realizing the problem, not anything from before. But anyway, cool. So we have this. We're passing it to here. We now have the data available in the front end. So now, what to do with that data is an interesting thing. One of the challenges that I was thinking about is that if I had this data and this was like a global application or an application with a lot of pages and this header was used in multiple locations, my solution with what I would do right now would be different than what it will be when I'm making this for a single page. Technically speaking, this is a multi-page application or a multi-page site. If we go to here and we go to our backup index, this has links to pages. And those pages are, here. They're in the file structure, so they're here. So, like, essentially, this is another page, but it doesn't have the header and the footer. They're formatted differently. The same thing for getting started today. So there's like kind of like two layouts. That is like an authentication flow um, layout, and then the typical page layout. So if I had to like spread this across all of them, I would probably want to think about how to pass this data in a more efficient way. But at the moment, all I really have to do is get that data into one page and then down into both the header and the footer component. And I found like a really interesting video that I'll probably link up in the show notes for this one on like a format for like passing data into components. So I'm going to do that right now. But it is my first time doing it, so I'm going to make it as a separate video. So at this point, I think we've achieved what we want. We have created data in Strapi. We have enabled that data to be accessible via the API, and we've returned that data into our front end of our application. So now the next video will be how to take that data and then put it into multiple components.